online for authors. Today, I'm chatting with Tristian Smith, author of Against All Odds. Welcome, Tristian.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. I enjoyed the book. I learned a lot. I felt a lot. I'm sure all of which you wanted to have happen. But before we really dive into the meat of things, give people a quick idea of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of Against All Odds.
So when you open it up, you'll discover, my immediate, my story, my childhood growing up in the state of Georgia. It's a story of adversity. It's a story of conquering adversity and taking one's adversity and using it as inspiration for the current generation or maybe even previous individuals who are part of the foster care system.
Right. Absolutely. I want to know why you decided to be vocal and write this memoir. So many people have been part of the foster care system, and yet we don't get a lot of information coming out. And you were very honest and very open and very sharing. What made you decide that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, as a kid, I didn't grow up. I was a pretty voracious reader, and so I didn't see a lot of books written by former foster youth. People that could speak to me from written word and articulating how they got through their adversity in the foster care system.
Right.
Another one is a lot of foster youth, once they get out, they try to forget that part of their lives. They try to go on and, they want to live somewhat of a normal life and forget that stage. And I didn't want to forget that because there were so many people that allowed me to be successful today. I went off to college. I got my bachelor's, my master's. I'm working on a second master's. I served my country as a United States Army officer. So to try to forget that part would be to forget those people that helped me get here. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest part or the biggest reason.
Absolutely. In the back of the book, you have a couple of what I'm going to call how-to guides, right? One is for people who want to help fix the system, and one is for those who are currently living in the system, right? So let's talk about the fixing part of it, because that really spoke to me. I've never been in the foster care system. I don't know anyone personally that was in the foster care system. Yet reading your stories, I immediately had this desire to run right out and do something, like something needs to be done, right? So let's talk about that. What are some things that you think can be done by people like me who don't normally have a hand in this kind of thing? What can we do to help fix a system that's obviously broken? Because you went into the foster care system and it should have been helpful to you and it wasn't.
No.
I mean, it was at times. At times you found people in it, but there were a lot of times in your life that it wasn't good and it wasn't helpful.
And I wanna add to what you just said, that the people who made it bearable or helped me were the people that did more than the bare minimum of what the foster care system asks from your foster parents or caseworkers. If they had just done the bare minimum, then who knows what would have happened to me and how my story might have been like. Right. I might not be here talking to you right now. But I feel like the quality of foster parents overall when I was in care was not adequate. I felt like I was just being babysat in a lot of my homes. I feel like those who are really wanting to do something should look into possibly being a mentor. If you really have it in your heart to have a foster youth come and live in your home, find out what the requirements are for you to do that in your state. But if these kids could always use a mentor, someone that's lived life, has had life experiences, and genuinely wants to establish relationships, because as foster youth, relationships is something we're in very, very short supply of, because we're constantly moving, saying goodbye to school, saying goodbye to foster homes. And so we're constantly having to restart or reinitiate new relationships. And eventually, you know, kids just stop mentally unpacking their bags, so to speak.
Yeah. I can't imagine how tough that would be. And part of me wants to fix the system so that this change over and over and over shouldn't have to happen. Like I feel like a child should be placed, and as long as the placement is good, like you've got good people involved, you know, like how many different homes were you in?
So I was in nearly 30 foster homes between the ages of 8 and 18.
When you think about that, I just want people to think about that number. 30 foster homes in 10 years, right? That's 3 homes a year. That's every 4 months you're getting up and you're changing. And that means that he changed schools, and he had to change friends, and he had to change where he slept, and he had everything. And there's something wrong to me with the system that requires a child to make 30 adjustments in 10 years.
Yeah. And then, you know, on top of that, I attended 13 different schools and lived in 4 different cities. So, you know, anytime you're talking about that type of instability, you're ruining his ability to develop from a social aspect.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you stop trying to talk to people and you become socially awkward in a way. And I felt like that's who I was from, you know, during my time as a foster youth, probably until my mid-20s. Like I was still dealing with, you know, engaging, you know, relationships and maintaining relationships.
Well, when you feel like they could be pulled out from under you at any moment, I mean, I can imagine. I moved once as a 15-year-old, and I remember being the new kid, and that's hard. It's a very hard place to be. And I'm not in any way equating it with what you went through. I'm just saying, I know that being the new kid is a difficult thing. And I can't imagine trying to be the new kid over and over and over and over and over, because in those periods of time, you're hardly getting to know people, and then you're yanked again. And you have to start over. And I just, what can be done to the system to help that not be a thing, to help people be more stable, that they understand that a child needs more stability than that?
Well, I think, again, it resorts back to the quality of foster parents that I had in the system. Like when I could tell you within 30 seconds of me walking into a new home with my caseworker, by the time she had left, we had greeted the foster parent, told the foster parents who I was, and she had walked out to her car and drove off. I had already decided whether or not I was going to disrupt this home, because I could tell, you know, there was just things that I could tell, whether it was the smell of the home, whether it was how they spoke to me, you know, if they cooked, if they smoked. I hated smokers, and I hate smokers to this day. But these were the things that, you know, made me feel unsafe, or made me feel like I wasn't wanted in a home. Right. Because a lot of the times that I would go into a foster home, the only times I would be interacted with was when it was time to wake up, time to eat, time to go to school, time to eat dinner, and time to go to bed, literally. It was just
simply a roof.
Yeah, I was literally a stranger in a home.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that a couple of times in my book, where, you know, the foster parents didn't care to understand the trauma I went through. It took several foster homes before I found one that was willing to ask me about how I felt after my mother died, or dealing with severe abuse from my aunt and uncle. You know, so very few of them really cared about the issues that caused me to be in foster care to begin with.
Right. And so with the foster care system now, I mean, you know, hopefully things have changed for the better. I keep always hoping that things are changing for the better. What does it require for someone to be a foster parent, and what kind do they get classes? Do they learn about childhood trauma? Or are they just kind of set loose and it's like, oh, I'm now a foster parent?
No, it's like here in Nebraska, I've gotten a chance to sit on a couple of new foster parent panels where they get to ask, older or more seasoned foster parents, and then me, I'm the person who's spent a ton of time in the foster care system,
right?
Yeah, so they're asking me things from my perspective. So it sounds like, the foster parents are actually interested in learning more about the kid versus the previous era when I was in foster care from 97 to 2007. So, we've had 18 years to improve upon things from a resource, from a training aspect, from a certification aspect, and just an overall knowledge, because, all these studies have come out on, how foster youth are impacted and how they end up once they age out of the system.
Exactly.
So, there's some mental health training, there's conflict resolution classes, there's trauma informed training, because 99% of these kids are coming with trauma.
With something. I mean, even just the trauma of being separated from their parent.
Yeah, that's the main trauma
there's trauma right there.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you add on, hey, did he watch his parents get murdered?
Was there sexual abuse? Was there death? Was there physical abuse? Was there alcoholism?
And
was there, right?
Yeah, and that just multiplies the trauma. So
absolutely,
they're doing a better job, I think, of trying to understand the kids in their home. But there's still work to be done.
Oh, well, I think that's going to be a true statement, regardless of what we do, that there's always more that we can do. I just think that, I'm a mom. I was a mom of 4 kids. I would know how to do the mothering part, but I would be at a loss with the trauma part.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to know that there are things out there to help with that trauma part, because, I don't know what as a mom, like I said, I know how to mom. I know how to be a good mom, but I don't really know what to do when there's the trauma that's involved, because that makes the child that you're dealing with significantly different than a child who's not had trauma.
Well, I think that's actually what's missing are, mother and father figures that actually know how to be a mother and a father.
Be a mother and father. Okay.
So if you're a mother and you know how to be nurturing, you know how to be compassionate, you know how to get people to open up, that's like 80% of the battle right there.
Okay.
And, there are, mental health resources, there are educational benefits, or not educational benefits, but educational resources for the youth.
Right.
If, they're behind in school or whatever. But a lot of it, a kid, for a foster parent, you are the first person a kid sees when they wake up and the last person they see when they go to bed. So being able to speak life into that kid, give them words of encouragement before they head off to school, asking them about their day when they get home from school, having conversations, taking them out of the home and not making it such a residential or like a facility type structure like a lot of my foster homes were, and being able to treat that kid like a normal kid and letting them be able
like taking you to Taco Tuesday and off to the splash pad or whatever, because that's what we're doing today. Okay.
Exactly. And so just allowing them to have a few moments where they can forget that, they're in foster care and that they're actually a kid. Because a lot of these kids don't get a chance to experience what real childhood is.
All right. So you also then really talk with the kids living in the foster system, and you gave some advice to them. Let's talk a little bit about that. If we've got, youth that are in this system, what can they do to be able to, on the other end, come out of that and make something of themselves?
Well, I emphasize that there's an obligation from the support systems, whether it's the foster parent, the caseworker, the guardian ad litem, the courts, the foster parents. They have obligations to the child to help set these kids up for success, but you can have the perfect support system in the world, and if you don't do certain things as the foster youth, you're still going to fail, and life is going to be hard for you. So that's what I want to emphasize in that particular part of the book. So, listening to your foster parents, adhering to the wisdom that they're giving you. These people have lived life longer than you. They've gone through life experiences. No, they haven't been through the foster care system, but they can share, times of their own, parts of their life where they experienced, trauma and adversity. Because there isn't a person on this earth walking around that hasn't dealt with adversity.
Something, right?
Hasn't gone through something. And if you haven't, I don't trust you as a human being. Yeah, because you're lying. You're lying to me.
You're not telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right?
So, things like picking, being mindful of the friends you have in your circle. Birds of a flock fly together. So if you are hanging around with friends that have less than stellar reputations, you're going to develop that reputation, and it'll be harder for you to establish relationships with the people you need to initiate those relationships with. And then the probably the most important part is your education. I was a C student. I think I graduated high school with a 2.7. So I wasn't, my grades sucked from my perspective, thinking back, but it was enough to where I could go to college.
Right.
And so doing well and focusing on your grades and taking your education seriously will open doors after you emancipate from the system. You'll have colleges available. You'll have trade school. You'll have, if you want to enlist in the military, you can do that. So there will be doors that will open for you if you focus on just your grades alone. You can, you want to be able to have the options where you can have a career field that allows you to live comfortably. So probably the last thing that I talk about is what was the other thing? I forgot, but yeah, those are the main points that I stress to the foster youth.
Well, and I think too, when you're looking at education, like you said, you were in 13 different schools in 10 years. That's pretty.
Oh, I know the other thing that I.
Go ahead.
So the last thing that I wanted to tell foster youth is to advocate for yourself.
That's what I was just about to say. Those words.
Yeah. You are your biggest advocate. So if there's something you need, say something. If someone tells you no, go to someone that can give you a yes. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned in the military. Don't take a no from someone who can't tell you yes.
Right.
Find someone above them that can give you the resources that you need so that you can be successful.
So, you're behind in school. You don't understand something that's going on. You can't follow what's happening in the classroom because you missed so much from all your transfers. That's when you need to reach out and let someone know. Start maybe with your foster family, start with your teachers. If they don't give you what you need, branch out from there. Try a principal, try your caseworker, try someone, and start letting people know, hey, I can't pass this class.
Yeah.
I need help, and not just in classes, but in other things.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. Because if your mental health is being taken care of and you're doing well academically, I give you about a 95% chance of being successful as a foster youth, because a lot of what prevents a kid from doing well academically is what's going on, mentally.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
between being shuffled between schools and then all that they have going on with the trauma, you have to adjust for both of those. So I just got done reading a fiction novel, and it's called Unspoken by Jan Alexander. And it's about a child who was living in a state home in the 1940s in Texas. And it was horrific. And everything I read made me just just sad. And then I thought the entire time while I'm reading it, I thought of you, which was a whole different era, or 50 years later, but there were many of the same problems. And I had the same thought about that child, which was a fictional child, and you, which was, how does a person go through a system like that and then come out on the other end, in quotes, okay, like able to go to college, able to go into the military and be successful there, able to find that job, that a family, those things. It's hard for me to comprehend because I had a pretty good childhood, and I think, well, I had it so easy. What is it? Is it just something within you, Tristian, that you had it, or was there more than that?
I think the first thing was I listened. There were a lot of times when I didn't listen, but as I got older, I realized that, hey, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason, and you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. And I realized that as a 19, 20-year-old that I didn't know anything about the world. Yeah. And the first lesson that, you should learn before you become an adult is that you cannot make it out here alone. So listening to, my mentors are now just, you might as well call them my mom and dad, because, I met them my freshman year in college. And 18 years later, they're getting ready to come up and stay with me in August for the weekend. So, I wouldn't be here without, taking the advice of others who are older than me, wiser than me, and more experienced in life than me. The second one is not throwing a pity party, not living in what I call the victimhood mentality. The way I see it, everybody's been through something, and the people who are successful find ways to endure their adversity, get through it, and then be able to pull others up with him or her. So I had to, it took me until my mid-20s, late 20s to realize that. And so, just not throwing a pity party, right. There's someone out here who's, as bad as my life was, there's someone out here who's had it 10 times as rough. So, who am I to complain about how my life, how my childhood was when, I'm here, I own 2 homes. I'm getting ready to graduate from, Johns Hopkins University, one of the best schools, not only in this country, but in the world. And I'm here, so I have no complaints whatsoever. So right. It's a different mindset that you have to have.
Right. I tell people that, when I'm going through things, I recently lost my husband. And so a lot of people say, well, how do you keep going on? And I said, well, I have 2 choices. I can lay on the floor, curled in a ball in the fetal position, or I can get up and do life.
Exactly.
And I can lay on the floor in a fetal position, but guess what?
Life
it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't bring him back. It doesn't change the past. So the other option is figure out a way to get up and keep moving forward. And that doesn't mean that you can't have the occasional pity party for yourself. Like, it's perfectly okay, Tristian, to say, no, that was a horrible time.
Yeah.
But you don't want to live there.
Yeah. I heard someone say that it's okay to fall down on the ground, but if I'm running past you, if I'm walking by you a week from now and you're still laying on the ground, then there's a problem. Right. You need to be able to get yourself up, accept whatever adversity that it was, get back up and find a way, find a solution to get through that adversity.
Absolutely.
Time is still ticking while you're laying down on the ground.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you talk about the fact that you're in a master's program right now. I'm curious, what are you doing with your life today?
So right now, I medically retired from the Army in 2023. I injured my back relatively bad and had to have, spinal surgery. And so I had to medically retire. And so now I work for the Department of the Air Force as a civil service employee. I have a master's degree in emergency and disaster management. So that is what I do for the Air Force now. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in grad school at Johns Hopkins and I'm studying intelligence analysis. So eventually I would like to switch over to being an intel analyst, in the near future.
Fantastic. And I'm curious, any more books in you? Are you done? Is this
yes,
the one and only, or are you writing more?
No, I do want to write a couple of more, specifically to foster youth, maybe even a children's book series, but, I just published Against All Odds last July, so it hasn't even been a full year yet. And so
I understand.
I want to, wait a few years and let, because this is kind of like my introduction to, to the world. And so I want people to read, find out who I am. I'm getting some, I just started getting a few keynote speaking opportunities.
Awesome.
I did my first one in April. I got another one in August in Georgia, where I spent, my time in foster care. Right. So it's going to be pretty awesome. And then I got another one in September here in northwest Nebraska. So I'm excited about the opportunities I'm getting to share my story and be an advocate for foster youth. I'm also what we call a CASA volunteer. It's a court-appointed special advocate. So you're assigned a case and you're basically going in, talking to the kids, talking to the people that are living with the kids, making sure that they're okay, basically, from an educational, mental health, or any resource standpoint. Awesome. You're establishing relationships with them. And so I've been doing that for about 8 months now. I've been assigned, three siblings that are doing very well. So I'm going to be part of their lives, hopefully for the near and for the near future. And then I'm also a member of what we call the Foster Care Review Board here in Nebraska as well. Basically, one Wednesday of the month, me and several others get together, we review cases, and then we make recommendations for the youth that are involved in the case, and try to make the best recommendations to the courts that stabilize that child. So it's a perfect opportunity. It's kind of a full circle moment for me, going from a youth in need to being one of those people who are trying to make the world
trying to make sure that the youth in need get what they need.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. So, hey guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. Look for the post, and there you'll have a chance to win a digital copy of Against All Odds. Just tell me something you liked or learned from this conversation. Tristian, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about foster care system, ways that they can help, things that they can do, how do they reach you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. My profile name is Tristian Smith. You can send me an email at smitht1988@gmail.com. And, send me an email and we can set up a FaceTime call to talk, and whether it's about the book, my time in foster care, or if you're part of the foster care community, I would love to get to know you, especially if you are looking for, a speaker, you can reach me at those two places as well.
Super. I'll have all that in the show notes, guys. This is a good book. You should definitely run right out and grab it, have a read. It has motivated me. I've started looking in my own county as to things that I might be able to do, as ways I might be able to mentor. And so, if you haven't touched anyone else, Tristian, you've at least reached one adult out here in the world that says, wow, something needs to be done here. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for being on the show today.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.